Good morning. Today I wanted to share part of my journey of growing up in a conservative religious environment as a member of the LGBTQIA plus community and how I found CUCC. My name is Kaylee, and to help preface the story, I am a transgender woman and I use she, her pronouns. Let's start at the beginning. I was born in a very religious family that belonged to a very conservative church. My family was and still is well respected and looked up in that church. One of my earliest memories was when I was about 4 and made to believe that I was different because of the kind of toys I played with and how feminine I acted. I was taught at an early age that being any part of the LGBTQIA plus community was one of the worst sins you could commit. I remember being so scared to go against God and being punished to eternal damnation that when I was around 4 years old, I would pray for God to take me so I could be in heaven and not sin. I grew up hating myself, bottling everything in about myself that would have been considered feminine. As a teenager, I joined the youth group and became very dedicated. I was determined to be the perfect Christian. I volunteered all my time to the church and took a purity pledge, which was one of the worst things I ever did at that time. Our annual youth winter camp, I confessed to my youth pastor and the guest pastor that I was struggling with gay thoughts. They prayed over me, and that led to weekly meetings with my youth pastor to confess any sins and things I was struggling with. He would use words like sick and broken as to infer that I could be cured or fixed, that if I just prayed enough, if I just had strong enough faith, and if I hated myself enough, because I was taught happiness did not matter if it meant I could not spend eternity in heaven. That if I served the Lord enough and glorified God enough, everything would fall into place. And I could be cured. And I tried. God knows how hard I tried. Later that next year, my life changed drastically for the worse. I ended up being sexually assaulted by a grown man. I was so confused as to what had happened to me. I ended up having to come out to my parents after having a STI scare from being sexually assaulted, and it did not go well. I was told by my father that, quote, "You are no longer my child. I wash my hands of you," end quote. I was lost and ended up confiding in my youth pastor about what happened to me. But he wasn't concerned that what had happened to me was not consensual, but that it was with another man and that I broke my purity vow. He tried to have me do more things to cure my queer lifestyle, like more prayer, counseling, but also having access to all my internet searches. But I refused to these things. So he told me there was no more they could do for me, and that I was a lost cause, and the church turned their backs on me. I had lost everything I knew, my church, my family, and many friends. I tried many things to numb the pain, but nothing worked. It got dark. I attempted ending my life multiple times that year, until I ended up hospitalized for my last attempt. When I left the hospital, I had every intention to finally just go through with it and end it all. But something came over me that I was here for a reason. I started trying to find myself and discovered what transgender was, and finally realized I was not alone in my struggles of gender identity. So I started to fully come out and transition. Many years later, my grandfather, who was like a father to me, had passed. I had a breakdown when I lost him, and I ended up detransitioning because I was afraid I would never see him again, and that my happiness on earth meant nothing if my salvation was damned. I went back to church and tried to be the perfect Christian again, but after a while and more issues with self-hate and beginning back down the road to wanting to hurt myself again, I decided to choose myself and my happiness, so I began to transition again. But I had some family who asked me to give it one more try to be saved. So I asked what I needed to do, and they said, meet with our pastor and let her pray over you, and that if you still felt the same, they would leave me alone and accept me. So I agreed. They took me to their church, which ended up being a revival night instead of a meeting with the pastor, which I was led to believe. Partway through, the pastor called me forward. I was nervous and scared. Then once I was up front, she called the congregation to surround me. And for what felt like forever, but was probably only 10 minutes, they started quite literally trying to pray the gay away. I was so mad, frustrated, and felt betrayed. Again, after 25 years, I fully left religion. Many people have wondered, and myself included, why did I stay so long? And why, when I finally got out, why did I choose to go back just to be hurt again? I think the reasons why is I always had a fear that they were right and I was wrong, and that a part of me believed that if they truly cared about me the way they claimed, then just maybe I could help open their hearts and minds. But I finally had to come to the realization that I would never be enough for them, and that they didn't only disagree with my theology, but they also did not believe in me as a human and who I am at my core. So when I left the church, I was an angry person. I was mad at my family, the church, and God. I felt empty and broken. I tried for years not to believe in God and to completely step away from religion, but I couldn't. I knew something was missing in my life, and that was a church community. I finally had realized it wasn't God that hurt me, it was the people. But I never believed I could find a church that would fully and unconditionally accept and support me until I found CUCC. I was very skeptical at first because many churches I have seen say they love and accept all no matter what, but then try to, quote, cure you. I had passed by CUCC one day after running errands and saw the pride flag, so I did my research on the church before attending. But the part that still blows me away is that I have lived in this neighborhood all my life and have attended Robinson Elementary and passed by this church many times and never noticed it. This is why I felt it was a God thing, that God showed me the church when I was ready and open to finding a community. I love this church. Everyone has been so welcoming, accepting, and genuine. What made me choose to call this place my church home was when I first met Pastor Julia and decided to be totally honest from the beginning so that way I could know right away whether I would be accepted or not, and introduced myself and stated I am transgender. And her response was, "It is nice to meet you, Kaylee. You are welcome here." I let out a sigh of relief and told myself I am home. At CUCC, I am told I am enough, worthy, and valued just as I am. I can never fully express my gratitude to CUCC. You all are helping me heal a part of me that I never thought would be healed, and gave me a spiritual home when I was spiritually broken. Thank you all for taking the time to listen and giving me an opportunity to tell my story and have my voice be heard.